Welcome to the Life Sounds Good podcast. I'm Mike.
And I'm Wendy. And today we are with MJ DeSousa, who is the Director of Patient Experience for Beltone North America. And Beltone is one of the larger hearing aid manufacturers. So having somebody looking at patient experience is absolutely brilliant. Welcome to the show, MJ.
Thank you so much, Wendy.
It's really good to have you here. First of all, let's talk about what is patient experience? What is it that you sort of oversee?
Sure. The patient experience, it really is all of those touch points that a patient goes through in their journey from first becoming aware that their hearing might have changed to interacting with marketing, contacting the clinic, and then all the way through to that in-clinic experience.
Why is it important to get a hearing test? Just cutting right to the chase here. Why is it important to do that, MJ?
Well, getting your hearing tested is so important. Hearing changes, it tends to change gradually and people adapt. And often there are significant changes before people really become aware that something has changed. And so because of the nature of the changes, it's really important to get regular hearing tests to identify those changes early and pursue treatment as early as possible.
Does somebody decide where to go and get that hearing test? What are the things, if you were just Joe Public on the street, what would you recommend looking at in the decision of what's going to be the right fit for you for getting that initial hearing test?
And it's really important to find some place that is that right fit for you because it really is about building that relationship, and the journey can be quite involved. So it really is important to find someone that you trust. So I guess it really comes down to the people. If you feel comfortable and confident with the clinic team, that's first and foremost. And the clinic that you choose to interact with, they should make it easy to do business with them, easy to contact, easy access to locations. And the in-clinic experience should have an ease to it as well. And, then there's the more obvious things. Locations should be clean, professional looking, and the staff really should work with you to understand your lived experience and how untreated hearing loss is impacting you in ways that are a priority for you.
Is there anything sort of out in the wild world of the internet or landing in people's mailboxes that for you would be considered red flags, that it would be like, maybe don't choose them for a hearing test? Or conversely so, is there something happening that somebody could go, yes, just based on, before they've even made that phone call, just based on what they've seen in their mailbox or on the internet, that it's like, yeah, these would be good people to pick to do my hearing test?
Well, today we have more resources than we've ever had before to really get a better understanding of who the company is and what they offer to make sure that you're comfortable before you take that first step. You can go online and look at Google reviews for different companies and see what patients are saying in those Google reviews. So that's a really important resource to take advantage of. Probably one of the big ones, at least in the initial stages. Talk to friends and family too. If you know people who have hearing aids and have gone down this path, talk to them about their experience and see what they recommend as well.
Yeah, the reviews are such a great place to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and human nature sort of has folks at the top part and at the bottom part who are leaving reviews, the people who are severely unhappy and the people who are super happy. Those folks in the middle don't tend to engage with the reviews at the same level. So you can get a real sense of whether it's a good fit. So that's a great idea, MJ. Once they've made the commitment to getting a hearing test, and we should probably cover the hearing tests are painless.
Yes. They are. It's really easy. They're quick, they're painless. And, just so if you're new to this and you have never gone down this path before and had a hearing test, it's simple. They'll test your hearing sensitivity. They'll look in your ear with a light called an otoscope. It's just a magnified light to assess external ear health. Then there's a test involving some tones and speech, and they're really assessing your hearing sensitivity. So what are the softest sounds that you're able to hear? Another important thing to look for when you're getting a hearing test is whether or not they do some type of assessment with background noise. And so we offer speech and noise tests, they're called. But those are really important because those really evaluate some of the more challenging situations that most people who are dealing with hearing loss experience. And those tests really look at, how big does the gap have to be between the level of noise and the level of speech in order for you to be able to hear the speech clearly. And so that's a really important component that should be evaluated.
And you're an audiologist. You're not solely the director of patient experience. You are, in fact, an audiologist.
Yes. Yep, I am. I've been in the industry for 30 plus years and spent a good portion of my early career working in clinic. So yes, I speak from firsthand experience.
So what brought you into hearing health care?
It's an interesting question, and it's a question that I often ask people that I'm working with that are in this industry as well, because no one's in kindergarten saying, I want to be in hearing healthcare when I grow up. At least not yet, anyway. Maybe that will change. But it's something that people either have firsthand experience with hearing loss themselves or with a loved one, or it's something that you kind of stumble into and discover a little bit later. And for me, I was fully prepared to pursue a career in research and focusing on the integration of visual and auditory perception, and wasn't really enjoying kind of that research world and was missing the patient interaction or people interaction. And I was looking for something a little different. And I had the fortunate opportunity to work with an audiologist through that research project. And so I started talking with him about, what is this profession? And I was really intrigued and spent a little bit of time in the clinic with him. And I was sold. And I decided that this was really something that got me excited and I wanted to pursue.
When somebody comes to a hearing clinic, what is the experience that they should anticipate having?
Yeah, from the first time that you come into the clinic, you really should feel comfortable and confident in the staff because you're going to be working closely with them. When you're engaging in the in-clinic experience, and once you go into the treatment room, start the test, there should be two main parts to the assessment. So there should be the assessment of your hearing, and that should include some type of speech and noise testing as well. There should also be an assessment of communication, and they should really empower you to develop a good understanding of your lived experience with untreated hearing loss and how it's impacting you in ways that are important to you. And that's a really important part of the evaluation, to develop that understanding and partner with you on that. It's also a really good idea to bring a companion or your significant other to the evaluation with you, because communication is a two-way street. And sometimes the perspective of your primary communication partner can be invaluable, and they've got some insights as well that can be helpful. It's also really helpful to have that person present so that you can make that shared decision, because it is a big decision and there's a lot of information that will be shared. So it's good to have that second person present. It also gives them a better understanding so that, once you take those first steps and get hearing aids, there is a bit of a learning curve, and it's good to have that built-in support as well.
I'm going to maybe open a Pandora's box here. I know I said there'd be no surprise questions, but I'm just possessed to ask. Because you are an audiologist, I think you're in a much better position to make a comment on what I'm about to ask than a lot of the other people that I interviewed. And that is the availability of over-the-counter hearing aids. And is that a good thing or a bad thing?
That's an interesting question, and it's been a really hot topic and a controversial one over the last few years. And, I like to think of it as kind of exciting in a way. And I try to take a sort of a positive view of it, because I think it's shining a light on our industry and on this area that is often minimized. And there's not as much awareness about hearing loss and all of these great treatments that are available as there should be. And so I think it's really exciting for our industry, learning a little bit more about your hearing and about what's available. And, if you take that first step, if you have more significant hearing loss, a lot of these OTC products are just not going to be appropriate, and they're not going to give you the benefit that you're looking for. But then that might lead you into the hands of a hearing care professional where you can get more individualized and customized hearing care.
And are there risks associated with going with any kind of over-the-counter products for hearing care?
Good question. And I'm not familiar with all of the over-the-counter products that are available. The ones that I am familiar with, the output is limited, so they're not going to over-amplify anything. So there shouldn't be a risk of any noise-induced hearing loss as a result. The main risk would be you're just not going to be getting the benefit that you need, and therefore, the brain's not going to get the stimulation that it needs for you to continue to be able to understand speech and communicate effectively.
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic because, as you say, it's fantastic that there's more information about hearing health getting out into the public. So what do hearing healthcare professionals bring to the party that is so necessary for people and that can help someone understand whether over-the-counter is the right option for them or whether they really need to see a professional?
Yeah, with the over-the-counter options, and as I said, I'm not really an expert in everything that's available in the over-the-counter space. Most of them seem to be kind of a sort of a small, medium, large approach, where it's just very generic kind of approaches to providing amplification. And that's really all they're doing, is providing a little bit of amplification. When you go to see a hearing care professional, what you're getting is a very customized, individualized treatment. And modern hearing aids are doing so much more than just amplifying. And so it's really important to get that assessment and to get your hearing tested with a professional so that you know exactly the status of your hearing and what the recommendations might be.
So you mentioned that hearing aids now do so much more than just amplification. Can you expand on that? Can you talk about some of the differences? Because I think a lot of people get sort of stuck in great Auntie Vi's hearing aids that they saw her wearing when they were children, and it's the 60s and 70s. And that's what so many people think hearing aids and hearing care still looks like. So what's really the modern experience that people should anticipate?
Yeah, modern hearing aids are so different. Even in the one thing that inspires me about this industry is the evolution of the technology and how far we've come since I started 30 years ago, even in the last 5 years. There's constant research and development going into these devices to improve the end user or the patient experience. And, modern hearing aids, I hate to say that they're complex, because I don't want people to be intimidated to use them. But they are little mini computers, and they really are doing a lot of things. They adapt automatically. There's a lot of automatic function available now so that you, as the hearing aid wearer, don't have to fiddle with them if you don't want to. They can connect with apps on your phone so that you can make adjustments on your phone without drawing attention to your ears by not having to press buttons and things like that. So there's all that functionality that has been built into modern hearing aids. The look and the feel is so much better. They're very light, very subtle. I've had people say that they got hearing aids and went home and their spouse didn't notice right away. So, the look has improved dramatically, and as well as the sound processing. They sound more natural than they've ever sounded before. The technology that we've incorporated into modern hearing aids to deal with noise is so much better than it has ever been before.
That's where I see some of the over-the-counter products really falling short, is that they're just, I compare it to glasses, right? You've got these glasses on the shelves in the drugstore, and they're really just different levels of magnifying glasses. So they're not giving you what your eyes need, so your eyes are going to slowly continue to deteriorate. Whereas these over-the-counter products, they seem to be just amplifiers, which is not necessarily, again, like the glasses, not necessarily giving you what your brain and ears need to slow or stop the deterioration. They're just making things louder, and that's not always what you need, as you just mentioned, with things like filtering out noise, adjusting for specific situations, giving you more highs or more lows depending on where your loss is. So just blasting more information at your brain is not necessarily a good solution. And from what you're telling me, what I'm hearing about some of the newer technology, there's sounds like a very large gap between what it can do for you and what these OTC ones can do for you. So that's a really great share. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, they can do things even going as far as, if you have what we call a high frequency hearing loss. So if very high pitched tones need to be quite loud for you, or sometimes you're not even able to hear those anymore, modern hearing aids can kind of shift those down into your usable, your treatable hearing range so that you get that full range of hearing. So, it's really incredible what they do today compared to older hearing aids and compared to over-the-counter products.
You mentioned that modern hearing aids make things sound more natural. And that's an interesting thing that I hear just in conversations with people about how their own voice sounds funny and they're having trouble adjusting to the sound of their own voice. Is there a way that you can explain without visual aids what's happening physiologically to someone that their voice sounds funny?
Yeah, there's two things that are happening when you have that experience, when you wear hearing aids and your own voice sounds funny to you. It could be that the microphones of the hearing aid are picking up your voice and amplifying that for you. So it's like when you hear a recording of yourself played back, you always have this perception that it somehow sounds different. So there's a little bit of that. And so there's a bit of an adaptation period to kind of getting used to that. But people get used to that very quickly. The other experience that people have is when they talk, they feel like their head's in a barrel a little bit, and that's from plugging the ear. So when the hearing aid plugs the ear, they get that feeling. That can be adjusted. We can make software adjustments to alleviate that. We can also make physical adjustments and add vents and things like that to open up the ear canal a little bit to prevent that.
So would it be safe to say that in the first couple weeks of somebody having hearing aids, if they encounter these things, like my voice sounds funny, that they should have a conversation with their hearing care professional, because modern hearing aids can be adjusted so many ways, but the hearing care professional is only going to know about the experience if the patient or client shares the experience.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to find a hearing care provider that you're comfortable with and that you trust, because that communication is so critical to your success with hearing aids. And there's a lot that we can do to alleviate some of those initial discomforts. But the one thing I would say as well is when you've been living with untreated hearing loss for a while and then you get hearing aids, you're going to be hearing sounds that, people with normal hearing or better hearing hear, and they're probably unfamiliar to you. So there is a little bit of almost a relearning that you need to go through at the beginning because you're getting sounds back that you weren't aware of before. So there is a little bit of that happens in the first few weeks. We adapt to those very quickly, and that's a good thing that you are hearing those sounds. And that's why it's really important when you get that assessment that you have a really in-depth conversation with the hearing care provider to make sure they have a good understanding of what your lifestyle is like and what situations you're looking to address with amplification, because that's your goal and that's what you're getting the hearing aids for. That's what you're really buying, is that improved quality of life in those situations. And so it's really important when you go back for follow-up appointments that they check in with you to make sure you're getting the benefit in those situations that you're looking for. And there may be some experiences along the way as you work towards that. Certainly if your voice is echoing or if you're experiencing things that are uncomfortable, communicate that. That can be addressed and adjusted. But there might be things like I've had patients come in and say that they thought their car was in dire need of repair because there are all sorts of noises they weren't used to, and it was just the way the car sounds. Or, little things like sounds of shoes on the floor that they weren't aware of before, and now they are. And so yeah, there's a little bit of a learning curve at the beginning, but the goal is to work with you to make sure you get the benefit in all of those situations that are important to you.
I have a friend who says the most expensive hearing aids are the ones you leave in the drawer. Yeah. So the fact that the most expensive hearing aids are the ones left in the drawer, plus the fact that the hearing care professionals have probably seen and heard everything on the face of the earth, a person really shouldn't hesitate. If there's something that they're unhappy with, don't put the hearing aids in the drawer. Go and get adjustments.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so important. Once you've taken that first step to make sure that you're using the hearing aids regularly and getting the benefit from them. And if you're not, and if you're finding that you're not wearing them, make sure that you contact your hearing care professional and communicate those reasons, because there's a lot of things that we can do now to overcome that.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are learning now through marketing messages, social media, the news, that hearing loss is about an awful lot more than just whether you can hear a conversation. The connections on the broader health care of a person. There's been so much research. Can you speak to some of the new stuff that's coming out?
Yeah, we're, as you say, we are learning a lot more about the health impacts of untreated hearing loss, and they can be significant. The latest study was talking about the role of hearing loss in dementia, and mentioned that treating your hearing loss is one of the biggest modifiable risk factors in dementia, which means that, using hearing aids may be linked to a decreased risk of developing dementia. We don't know anything about the cause yet, but there's definitely a strong correlation. And so, it's such an easy thing to do, to get your hearing tested. And if your hearing isn't optimal, to use technology to ensure that you continue to maintain those connections and keep your brain engaged.
So just as a human being, not as a healthcare professional, what is the most important thing to you about service? So patient service, client service, service in a retail environment, any of those things. Just for MJ, what is the most important thing?
One of the most important things for me about service is that it's consistent. And when I think about businesses that I am loyal to, it's predictable, it's consistent, I know what I'm getting, it's familiar. So that's probably one of the most important things to me. It's quality, and that quality is consistent. And those are probably the two most important things, the consistency and the quality.
And that's an expectation I think people should have with their hearing care professional as well. Any health aspect, really. So one of our previous guests, April Corner, who's the founder of hardtohearit.com, made the observation that hearing tests are not yet part of our regular healthcare regimen. It's not something we do annually or every couple of years, and people don't hear a recommendation from doctors about going for a hearing test until something bubbles up. Why do you think that it's not being paid attention to as a regular part of healthcare?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's so true. I mean, as a society in general, we tend to minimize hearing loss and the impact of hearing loss. And, I don't know all the reasons why that is. Part of it might be that our industry is still a fairly young industry. It really became an industry after World War II, when a lot of veterans were returning with significant noise-induced hearing loss. And that's really when the industry became a significant industry. But yeah, in terms of awareness of hearing loss, part of it could be too that it happens gradually and it's invisible. And so it kind of lends itself to being easy to minimize. You know, I talk a lot about this idea of normalization, and we need to normalize hearing testing. And, you know, we need to normalize the idea that you should get your hearing tested, just like you get your vision tested, just like you go to the dentist, all these other health areas that we accept and routinely monitor. We should be doing the same for our hearing. And as soon as you're not hearing optimally, you should use technology to ensure that you're able to continue to communicate and show up at your best. And I think we as an industry need to spread that word and get that message out. And certainly to physicians, primary care physicians in particular, because they're often that first point of contact, they should be asking about hearing. And so that's something that I talk to physicians about, or anyone who will listen. But we really do want to get that message out that hearing testing should be part of our regular routine healthcare.
Absolutely. So in closing, what is the one thing, the most important thing, if you could share just 2 or 3 sentences with somebody about their hearing health, what would those super important things be?
Get your hearing tested regularly. And when it's not optimal, get treatment, get hearing aids early, because you're going to be more successful. And we know that it contributes to health in the long term.
Thank you very much for taking time out of what I know is a very busy schedule, MJ. It's been wonderful talking with you. Our guest today was MJ DeSousa, the Director of Patient Experience for Beltone North America. And she is an audiologist and is just full of wisdom. Thank you so much for joining us, MJ.
Thanks, thank MJ. You so much, Wendy, and thank you, Mike.
Thanks for joining us on the Life Sounds Good podcast. As always, I'm Mike.
And I'm Wendy. Thanks for joining us. And don't forget, you can find the Life Sounds Good podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out on social media. Thanks for joining me again today, Mike.
Always a pleasure, Wendy. And remember, life sounds good.